What's up, guys? It's Rob from the Dad the Best I Can podcast on BYLR Radio. Really powerful interview this week with stand-up comedian, entrepreneur, dad to three girls, Jamie Bendall. And I pulled this clip from the interview because it was a really powerful story and message from Jamie and I talking about the importance of guys, of dads especially, as they get older, into their 40s, into their 50s, why it's so important to make sure you have two or three friends that you can really open up to if you're getting into trouble. I hope you guys enjoy the clip, and if you do, share it with a friend that would benefit from listening to. Check it out. I got to get the kids here in a little bit, but I do want to ask you, because you do, I mean, people like you and Jesse, I'm sure you even know a lot of dads. Once they hit 40, they got a bunch of young kids. Their life kind of does plateau. They aren't learning. They aren't doing all these new cool things. It seems like that's always been a part of you, but what do you tell other friends, and what kind of advice might you give other dads as they get older and maybe lose connections with their friends and they're not as social? Because I do think it affects our mental health in a lot of ways. Is there some kind of advice or something that you've done that's helped you continue to grow?
Well, so I think that you raise a great point that, so part of being a good parent, I think, is sort of demonstrating to your kids that you have your own identity outside of them. I think that women tend to, so if it was going to be out of balance, the stereotype might be that women lose their sense of self as they become moms, because they maybe identify themselves principally as mothers. And I'm speaking obviously very broadly. It may be that that's not as common an experience for dads. There may be fewer men who principally identify themselves as dad before they identify themselves as whatever their role is outside the house. And again, that's painting with a very broad brush from a stereotypical perspective. That said, I think it's important. So I play a lot of basketball, right? I'm not much of a golfer. I do play a lot of basketball. That's important time for me. It's social time with the guys I play with. It allows me to go out and enjoy time that's important to me with other people. It doesn't necessarily come at the expense of what I would have to do with the kids. So candidly, I have never been I'm going to skip the kids' game because I'm going to go play golf. Like that's just, I know people do it. It's just not anything that I ever could wrap my head around, you know. The mental health part, you get into your 40s, and I think that those can be very perilous times for men, because at some point, your life starts to get fixed, right? So you wouldn't anticipate that you're going to have any more kids, right?
Right.
This is your spouse. These are your children. Your job is your job. Oftentimes your spouse's job is your spouse's job. This is it. You're not in my life is going to be different at some point. When you're in 20s, maybe I don't know who I'm going to marry. Maybe we're married. I don't know how many kids we're going to have. At some point, you're like, this is it. This is the number of kids. This is who I'm doing this with, right? And you can get into what is this unfamiliar territory. And I think that as scary as it can be to get on stage and talk to a group of strangers, for too many men, it's scarier to be genuinely vulnerable with their male friends. To say, I've really got something I'm struggling with. Like I've got some stuff at work that I can't manage. I've got some stuff in my life that I don't know how to do. There's some issue with my kids that I don't know how to find my way through. So the most important thing I think you can be doing in your 40s, in your 50s, is really leaning on those relationships and being vulnerable when you need to about getting help when you know you're getting into danger. You know, it's odd, but I think statistically that there are some predictable peaks, like for issues, and I know I'm taking us a little off field here, but I think relative to like suicides, right? Young men is a high risk suicide population. Old men, 70s and up, are also a high risk population, because I think in part they perceive all of my value is used up, right? So that's a high risk area. The next risk is right where you are in your 40s. Like, that's a massive risk area, because it can start to feel overwhelming. So, you know, I think not only for your personal well-being, but also for the well-being of your kids and the rest of your family, like leaning on that network. And if you can't lean into your network and say, I'm at risk, I'm having trouble, I got to tell you, you got the wrong network. Like, you shouldn't have a group of guys that you can't go to and have somebody. I'm not saying you need 8 of them, but 2 or 3 guys that you can have real communication with, and help you through those challenging times.
Yeah, that really does hit home. And I think that group can change, that can evolve. You might not have
Totally.
your friends
Yeah.
from high school until
Yeah.
you're, you know,
Yeah.
so very
Yeah.
important stuff that I think
Yeah.
you're sharing, that a lot of guys are going through and don't talk about. You know, that's, you know, that was a big reason I started the podcast and wrote the book, is just because, like, guys are not talking about this stuff. We'll say, you know, how was the game on Saturday? And, you know, oh, another kid,
It's all
cool.
skipping along the surface. It's all skipping right along the surface.
Right.
That you have to find a time. And I had an experience, and was with somebody. It was a guy I had coached his kid. He was somebody who I knew casually in the community, and I ran into him one night out at a local place around the neighborhood, and his behavior was off. It was out of character with who I knew him to be as a person. Granted, I wasn't super close to him, but I knew him well enough to recognize and be like, holy moly, this is not how I know this person. We chatted about the kids. It was, how are your girls doing? How are my girls doing? Whatever. And I left, and I actually stopped my car in the parking lot and thought, I should maybe go back in and talk to him. And then I thought, nah, I'm overthinking it, whatever. Go home. Rest of the weekend finishes. Monday, my wife calls me at the office, and she says, you're never going to believe so-and-so killed himself over the weekend. And I thought, that's impossible. I just saw this guy Friday night. So this is what the girls are telling me. This person, you know. And by no means, would I suggest that if I had done anything different, that it changes that outcome, right? But my point is that there was some crisis that was going on in that person's life, and it was going on in such a way that it reached a point where I, as a ring out, was able to identify, holy moly, what's going on here? And so my suspicion is that somebody in some of those close to the other rings also had an opportunity to grab a hold of that situation and say, is there something that we could be doing differently here? So it's real. I mean, it's
uncomfortable to even make that comment to your friend. I think maybe women are better at doing that. You know, Jessica, it seems like you're struggling, but guys, we just don't go there naturally. So we're better off, I'll just keep it to myself. But I think that's something that, you know, I'm learning, that even that question could really help somebody.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference and it's okay. So let me then maybe put it in this terms to somebody else who's going to listen to this and take some action based on it. If you go out on that limb and say to a person, so the equation is simple. there's a person in your life, there's a male friend, there's another dad, there's somebody who has value to you. Their relationship with you matters. If it's valuable to you, then it should be valuable enough to say, are you okay? And really mean, are you okay? And if you get pushback, drop into some humor, right? That's a great place to use humor and be like, hey buddy, I'm just checking out, like, hey, whatever, so you don't have to feel defensive about the ask. Mm-hmm. Use it as an opportunity to, one, because you've planted the seed, and it's possible that the person doesn't bite then, but comes back to you in a week or 10 days later and says, hey man, when you call me, let's go grab some lunch because I got some stuff that I actually do want to talk to you about, mm-hmm. right? You've at least expressed a willingness that you're open to that kind of conversation, mm-hmm. which is half the battle, right? If your relationship is so tenuous that I can't go, hey man, you doing okay? What does that ultimately say about us, that I feel that I'm at risk to be like, hey, whatever happened to your buddy Bobby? You'd be like, oh, I asked him how he was doing one time and he apparently took it the wrong way and now we don't talk anymore. Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense,
Well, yeah. Well, and besides humor, which is always good, and self-deprecation, which I know you're a master at as well, I think sharing your own stuff. Hey, I'm going through this. That does open the door for other people to be like, oh, I didn't know we could talk about those kind of things. So that's something else I find in conversations. Me sharing what I'm going through and having them listen. Now, there is some kind of door that's been open where, oh, all right, I didn't know it was cool to talk about that. So
yeah, it's 100% absolutely the case. And where we have questions, right, or concerns, the first place you should be going is to the people who are closest to you, right? Mm-hmm. I've been fortunate enough to have some great friends over the years, and if it weren't for the fact that they were also great people, my life would have been way worse without mm-hmm. their presence in it, So of course I should be able to go to them and be like, hey man, your boy Jamie needs some help here.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting about that too, as you said, as our world shrinks, we're mom, kids, all that, the person that you might want to be talking to isn't your wife. It's not your kids. It might not even be your parents because there's like a different thing. And it might not even be your old friends. It is cultivating those new relationships, or saying, oh, Jamie, it seems like I've heard you talk about this kind of stuff. Can we talk? So I think like that's kind of the hole that I think a lot of guys get in, is like, I got nobody to talk to. My wife doesn't want to hear it, So I think it really is renewing these relationships,
and some of it. So think about. So there has to be space, right, for things to develop. And so if I'm always on an agenda, and I'd be like, hey man, so listen, I got 10 minutes. What's going on with you? You doing okay? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, you all right? You need anything? Like, how's everything? And you feel like, well, I got to process all this stuff that, like, I don't know, the 10 minutes is going to get it done. Right. My default might be like, no, that's okay. Right. Yeah. But if you were to be like, come on, let's go get lunch. Right. And you'd hang out, and after you get through the pleasantries of what's going on and and you're testing it out, and you're feeling like, is this a safe time to broach the subject of whatever that other issue is? And so in the same way that it's important to carve out individual time for your children, I would make the argument that it's just as important to carve out individual time in the event that you do have a friend who's got some stuff that they need to be able to be talking to you about, or that you have stuff to talk about, right? Because I may have to go with you lunch twice. If I haven't talked to you in a year, I may have to be like, hey, can we go grab a quick lunch? Yeah. Because I'm going to need to schedule a second lunch to say, hey, I got some stuff.
and any dad that has kids and is married or divorced or anything is going to jump at that opportunity, right? Like the chance of going to hang out with guys, where, especially if somebody's initiating it, at least my friends are like, yeah, come on over. It's like they're very excited to. So offering it, you're probably not going to be turned down. We've got more clips with Jamie Bendall here and on Jesse Itzler's BYLR radio app. You can learn more at dadthebestican.com and go check out my new book featuring clips and interviews. Makes a great gift for dad. Just click the Amazon link in the description.